You remember to turn the water off, right? Ghosts aren't covered by my insurance. We'll just have to say it was my gross incompetence. Howdy. In the past, there might have been a Nintendo game you've wanted to play, but sometimes they can be randomly pulled from online stores. Sometimes for fair reasons, other times for incredibly stupid reasons. For some of these games, unless a physical copy is kept of the game, they can actually become lost media. And that can be not just a tragic loss of art, but a tragic loss of hundreds of hours of work. Nice simple title today, these are Nintendo games pulled from online stores. We'll mainly focus on the Switch games that have been delisted, but we'll also look at some games that were pulled from the 3DS, the Wii and the Wii U. And obviously today, the older console stores like the Wii and 3DS are all shut down. But we'll focus on the games that were delisted before the stores shut down. Why did they have to leave the stores early? With that said, let's begin. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. 35 on the Nintendo Switch. Of course it's Nintendo Switch. What do you think, it's Sony Switch? It's a stupid thing to say. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. 35 on the Switch. Did you know that Nintendo released temporarily a multiplayer Mario Battle Royale game? Emphasis on temporarily. This was probably the most popular recommendation from my community. It was named Mario 35 since it was a celebration of Mario's 35th anniversary. It was a free downloadable game for Nintendo Switch Online players back in 2020, but its servers were shut down in April 2021 and it was removed from the eShop completely. Why? Well, this is what someone in my community thought.
Probably my favourite online battle royale game. But since Nintendo actively hates us, you know, crying face.
The game itself is actually pretty wild. Although on a basic level you play the run and jump platforming of the original 32 levels of the 1985 Mario, you're playing it alongside 34 other players in a battle royale. There are a lot of fun little additions, like you could vote which level to start on and in what order you'd play the levels in. And there were these special battle events that had a different theme every week. And if you collected 20 coins, you get a roulette of power-ups that supercharge you. A roulette system similar to Mario Kart. There are a bunch of other cool additions, like enemies you defeat could be sent to one of the other 34 players' worlds, as an additional nuisance to them. But if that timer in the corner reaches 0, you are KO'd from the match. Watching a skilled player face off against 34 other players was honestly pretty fascinating and wild to see. This player we're seeing, JC4U2, eventually managed to KO every single one of the other 34 players. Damn! I could see from the comments alone that tons of people missed this game. But it was free and it wasn't making Nintendo money, so it had to go after Celebration ended. This bugs me because, well, life is hard enough as is. People deserve nice things. You have money, Nintendo, you have crap tons of money. Let people have nice things. And while we're on the subject of Nintendo being jerks, let's discuss another famous delisted game. Super Mario 3D All-Stars. How about a portable remake of the most iconic, groundbreaking 3D game ever created? Also Mario Sunshine. How about now making it artificially scarce for no reason beyond corporate greed? What's that? You missed buying the game before it was delisted? Too bad, so sad. Good luck buying it off the scalpers. From my understanding, Nintendo removed this game to mimic the Disney Vault strategy. Basically, Disney used to make their movies available, then remove them later, so people would feel FOMO, fear of missing out. This resulted in more people buying the Disney movies so they didn't miss out on it. It's dirty, but sadly it's an effective strategy. By Nintendo temporarily making these games available on the Switch, they sold over 9 million copies. Unless you couldn't afford the game at the time or wanted to spend your money elsewhere, which is perfectly understandable. They don't make these games cheap. Sadly, this happened to Kaylee in my community.
I've been wanting to save up for this since it was around $60 US. But now when I look it up, it's over $100 US and not in the eShop. I have Galaxy on the Wii, but I don't have the other two games. Sad day.
Sorry to hear you missed it, Kaylee. With that being said, I can't blame people who did buy it. Even with barely any changes, Super Mario 64, Mario Galaxy and Mario Sunshine are an incredible combination of games to get on the Switch. I have so many formative memories from when I was 8 playing Mario 64. All I would do was just jump and run around the castle outside and I had a hell of a time. It had never felt so versatile and outright fun, just making Mario jump and run around outside going yah, wah, whoo. Mario's first 3D adventure was a hell of a jumpstart for 3D. So yeah, it was like teasing a carrot in front of a donkey with very good hand-eye coordination anyway. And what do you know, 4 years later, hawkers are selling these games for $140 each on eBay. That being said, we had the portable remastered Mario 64 DS version available many years earlier in 2004, and that game had a lot of additions in it, back when Nintendo wasn't on the top of the market and actually had to try. Anyway, my disappointment aside, the games are almost identical to their original, but with a bare minimum update in resolution and a stable 30 frames per second. In Mario 64, Mario's face has a higher texture, and the only other change I could find was a really weird one. Back in the original, when Mario would throw Bowser in the boss area, he'd say, "So long, Bowser." But in the new version he says, "Bye-bye." Apparently this is because he's not called Bowser in Japan, but Koopa. Let's hang on this point one sec. A lot of people used to think he said, "So long, Bowser," but I always thought he said, "Me Bowser." You know, in like a really dated Italian accent or something. "Eh, my Bowser." Okay, we're moving on. Next up, we have the Switch title, Mirror. It's a waifu puzzle game. Kinda like Candy Crush. Match 3 shapes and will do damage to your opponent. The original Steam game even had RPG elements built in and a stronger story.
Wow, these women have really big
personalities.
They must have a hard time bra shopping.
Well, originally they apparently didn't even bother with those. The original Steam version contained both nudity and sexual content, but obviously this was removed for the Switch version. Apparently the cutting had to go so far to remove all this content that some character stories were altered completely. But these lovely ladies remained our opponents in these Candy Crush games that we have to lower the health of.
I wonder if they have to get their bras custom made.
Honey, please stop tempting the YouTube censors.
But lots of ladies go bra shopping.
Yeah, I know, but YouTube has weird standards. It doesn't make sense to me either. Anyway, the Switch debut of these ladies was delisted in 2021. The exact reason it was removed is vague at best. In my community, Kawaii Ruby suggested a reason.
Mirror got taken off the Switch for being too hanky-panky.
But it may have also been due to the Switch version's abysmal reviews. This cut version was not loved by critics, it was almost universally panned, such as this critic, El Pabado.
0 out of 10. The fact that this even has a Nintendo Switch version is wild. They deleted every scene, so it's not even a hentai game. It's Candy Crush.
Lo-Fi Lady was a big fan of the original Steam version.
This is one of my favourite games on Steam, but they had to completely rewrite the game for Switch. And the new dialogue is some of the worst writing I've ever seen put to paper.
Anyway, I probably spent too much time dawdling on a game you don't even know about, so let's move on. Next up, we have the game Meme Run on the Wii U. Oh, using the word game for this is being very generous. 5 seconds of this game was enough for me. I think one of my patron bosses, Melanie, summed it up well when she suggested this game.
This game is an absolute doozy. Copyright violations, poor quality gameplay, loud, bright visuals. This game is the living embodiment of a headache.
And yeah, this is one of the very worst games I've ever seen. But it's art. Let's try and figure out why it was removed from the eShop. I mean, for one, it stinks, and I don't think anyone would miss it. I remember back in the day, Nintendo had this thing called the quote-unquote Nintendo Seal of Quality. Did this game actually get the Nintendo Seal of Quality? I feel like it says a lot about the Seal of Quality if it did. Or do they not do that anymore? Anyway, this game being bad is no reason to not at least preserve it. What do you say for gameplay on this thing? It's an endless run-up platformer that is very annoying to look at, and very loud and very irritating. You play as a stick figure troll face head. Nintendo seal of quality. But no, it wasn't removed for being low quality and a disgrace to Nintendo's legacy. Do you remember some of that Wii shovelware we had back in the day? Anyway. The reason it was actually removed from the eShop is due to the unlicensed use of Trollface by the developers. Because clearly someone had to preserve the sanctity of Trollface. The owner of Trollface explained themselves on Reddit.
I own the copyright to Trollface. I sent a DMCA takedown notice to Nintendo. I want to try and settle the matter amicably. My lawyers have been busy working on another case for Trollface, and I prefer to let them handle my legal representation.
Yeah, that's quite the story to tell your grandkids. I sternly enforce the copyright ownership of an ugly 2-second MS Paint drawing slapped over a stick figure. When the game was criticized for having abysmal gameplay, the creator, Jordan, responded with this.
It was a parody intended to troll gamers. My friends in college enjoyed my game.
Well, I'm glad they did, but maybe next time, Jordan, keep your game just among your college friends or post it on itch.io. Because I just can't imagine Meme Run being a game many people want to pay money to experience. The next game removed is Adventure Time. Explore the dungeon because I don't know. However you choose to use it, I consider your time extremely valuable. So I'm going to hold up a sign and make a sound whenever a game runs into licensing issues. And yep, Adventure Time Explore the Dungeon because I don't know is the first to run into these licensing issues. We just got ourselves a basic top-down dungeon crawler where we play as Finn, Jake, Marceline, or Cinnamon Bun, if you're into that. Though it's worth mentioning, this game did receive very mixed reviews. Personally, I like a good dungeon crawler with a beautiful art style, but outlets like IGN weren't as kind to this game.
For a game based on Adventure Time, this has so little imagination. No cool enemies, no secret passageways, no mini-quests, and the enemies are generic. It's a stunning disappointment. 3.5 stars.
Still though, that doesn't mean this game should disappear. I think all these games should have an opportunity to be preserved. But as we'll see as we continue, a lot of games like this aren't getting the chance to be preserved. Our next delisted game is Fitness Boxing on the Switch. I really enjoyed the old boxing game on the Wii Sports. It gave me a chance in gaming to get off the couch and actually do some gaming on my feet, though Fitness Boxing is designed with the Switch controllers in mind. It sounds like a great idea. Unfortunately, it's more like Wii Fit boxing with music. Punch icons to the beats. Woohoo! Obviously some people enjoyed it, but this was considerably less interesting to me than the boxing on the Wii. Anyway, in 2023, Nintendo announced on Twitter that they were removing Fitness Boxing from the Switch shops. Why though? Yep. In this case, the licenses expired on a lot of the game's music. That being said, Fitness Boxing 2 and 3 are now available on the Switch, and they look like the same freaking game with barely any changes whatsoever. So I guess if you really feel like boxing to the rhythm, at least as an option. Seeing this game has made me kinda wanna try Ring Fit Adventure though. I've heard that game's okay. I miss those Wii physical movement games, you know? Next up we have the notorious Cooking Mama Cookstar game on the Switch. What could possibly be wrong with an innocent Cooking Mama game? Sure, these games breed like rabbits, but Cooking Mama's been hanging out in the kitchen since the DS days. It's her thing, you know? But Cookstar was pulled from online stores just hours after its release, after rumors the game hijacked the user's Nintendo Switch to secretly mine for cryptocurrency. While most involved have been very secret about this game's controversy and what happened, we fortunately do have information from an anonymous whistleblower. The whistleblower claimed to work for one of the companies involved with Cookstar. Apparently, for many on the development team, this was the first time they'd made a game. These developers struggled to even use game tools like Unity. Cookstar ran horribly, it would crash a lot, and often cause the Switch batteries to overheat. According to this source, the whole controversy of it mining for cryptocurrency is false. What actually happened was, the game producers were only discussing using crypto chain technology for online transactions. But apparently this cryptocurrency technology was never actually used, so it was basically just buzzwords for investors. But given most of these developers never actually made a game before, how does Cookstar actually play? According to reviewers, dreadful. We have some of the worst, most broken voice acting here I've ever heard in a game in 2020.
Getting hungry.
Seriously, Japan, how hard is it to get someone who speaks English to voice act your game for the English dub? My community is packed to the brim with voice actors who desperately want work. Hell, I'd have done this game just for free, just for the fun of it. For the game in general, according to IGN.
Play a sequence of simple and repetitive mini-games that have you cook food, then take a photo of your creation. You can post these on social media if you want to send your friends an obvious cry for help.
The poor quality was actually the main reason this game was removed from stores. The producers of the game didn't listen to the IP's feedback of the game being terrible quality and below the standards of Cooking Mama games. Rather than trying to fix these obvious problems, the producers just released the game anyway, without the consent of the original IP holders. So the IP immediately terminated their license with these game developers. Basically, the original owners of this game were so ashamed of it that they refused to release it. We've got to look after Cooking Mama's reputation. She's got meals to cook. Our next delisted games are the original Grand Theft Auto games on the Switch. This one's a bit of a weasel call, as technically the remastered versions of the Grand Theft Auto are available on the Switch. But these original Grand Theft Auto games were removed from stores not for the reason you might be thinking. It wasn't violence or hot coffee mods, but instead all the original games were removed and replaced on all platforms with the quote-unquote definitive editions. This definitive edition contained all the original 3D games, Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and my favorite of the series, San Andreas, with updated textures, draw distance, that sort of thing. But the original Grand Theft Auto games are almost impossible to find now unless you have a physical copy. Which I did have the original San Andreas 17 years ago, but I have no idea where I put it. Probably in a CD wallet somewhere. And this decision to remove all the original games was met with a lot of criticism, because this definitive edition was met with a lot of mixed reviews. And when I say mixed, I mean overwhelmingly hated by fans, with a score of 1.1 out of 10 based on 4,436 ratings. Wow. According to Adria from IGN,
a textbook example of how not to remaster games from the PlayStation 2 era. These defective releases are desecrations of the 3 classic titles. They deserved much better treatment.
When asked on Reddit about the removal of the games, viewers were less than pleased. According to the most upvoted comment,
pretty grade A of them to remove their shit from the store. Also, they can profit from the new and not make themselves look extra bad.
The game used to be ridiculously crashy and buggy and have all sorts of problems, but nowadays they've improved in quality significantly because of many patches over years and years. And when I played the remastered edition of San Andreas last year, I found it mostly worked fine. But Rockstar making these Grand Theft Auto games completely unavailable has left a bad taste with many fans.
Same old CJ, Buster, straight Buster.
Next up we have Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragons, and the Blade of Light. This was among the first tactical role-playing games that started it all way back in 1990, and for a brief time a 30-year anniversary edition of it was released on Switch. But once again, this classic game was quickly removed after the anniversary, and now it sells for between $130 and $250 from scalpers. Well done. Why remove the first tactical JRPG of all time from being readily available on modern systems? I don't know, to be jerks, I guess. We have a very strange choice next. A Dark Room. I'll be brief, because this game isn't very well known and it's about as indie as you can get. It's a text-based adventure game for $7, but it is a fun story on how to get Nintendo to never ever work with you again. Ever. You see, the person who converted this game to Switch added a secret Ruby code editor and runner to the game's Easter eggs, according to Amir.
This effectively turns every consumer Nintendo Switch into a Ruby machine.
This allowed any owner of the game to write and run their own apps on their Switches. No hacking required. Surprising no one, Nintendo wasn't a fan of this and quickly pulled the game from stores. They added the game back later with the code editor removed, but you know, it's still a fun story. Our next removed game is Growtopia. Just a quick mention about this old 2012 relic, because it's kind of nice to be reminded that microtransactions don't always make a company rich. This is a weird 2D MMO from the past, and it tried to financially sustain itself on the Switch with microtransactions. But it was so unsuccessful in selling to players that the game was delisted from a Nintendo store and shut down. Almost like microtransactions aren't the best business model. Personally, I tend to prefer when I can just buy a game. But when you're pressuring yourself, it's kind of nice to have a reminder that not every online game is a Roblox level of success. In fact, the vast majority of online microtransaction games aren't even 1/100th as successful as Roblox. I don't know, maybe there's a weird thing for me to take solace in, but as someone who nearly lost their job due to lack of interest if not for Patreon, I kind of appreciate a reminder that not every online project is a ginormous success. And our next game that was delisted is PacMan 99. Gee, Battle Royale games was such a thing for a while, weren't they? And here we have a remastered arcade classic turned into a Battle Royale as well. And honestly, it looked like a good time. I remember seeing someone play this one way back in 2021. It's a very similar system to Mario 35, but given both games are made by the same company Eureka, yeah, that makes sense. Except instead of 35 players like in Mario, this one involves playing against 99 players. Similar to Mario 35, any enemies you defeat are sent to other players, and across 99 players, that can cause some major chaos on screen if you're watching. But the game was removed from stores in 2023, no longer able to be purchased from stores. And the online servers shut down, so even if you own the game, only offline mode could be accessed. Sadly, player counts rise and fall quickly on these games. I think Super Ben explained it well in my community.
They delisted this in favour of Chomp Champs, but I bet that one won't last long either, considering its player count.
Some of these online games just can't last as player interest just comes and goes. That being said, you also have games like Counter-Strike, which managed to run their servers for 15 to 20 years. Yet Nintendo is apparently so strapped for cash that they can't keep a few cheap servers running for their low-traffic eShop games? But maybe it's more complicated and expensive than that. I'm not an expert, I don't know. Knowing Nintendo, maybe it's Eureka footing the server bill. Either way, not many online games come even close to Counter-Strike's success, so I get it. These last two have kind of been downers. Hey Ninhoney, how's the Hello Kitty religion going?
We're going to Hello Kitty Land. It's a theme park in Japan. Wanna go with us?
Does it involve me seeing Hello Kitty?
Lots of Hello Kitty.
Well, on Google it does manage 4 stars out of 10,000 reviews. Well, alright, but I want a waffle cone. Our next delisting is the Hokkaido cereal murder case. You know, Easter eggs can be a tasty chocolate treat from the Easter Bunny, or sometimes they can nearly kill franchises, such as the hot coffee Easter egg in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. But in this case, its Easter egg got it pulled from the eShop. The game's like a PhoenixStarYT style point-and-click adventure game. Characters actually have voice acting here and more than one frame of animation.
すでに地元の警察が調べを行っているようです。
We investigate a body found in Tokyo Bay and have to solve a murder case. So, you know, a good standard PhoenixStarYT episode. But it wasn't quite a hot coffee Easter egg that got it removed, much more subtle. You see, at one point we're chatting to our friend Megami here in the bathhouse. And if you wait long enough, Megami drops her towel and shows a bathing suit area. And in the Western world, Megami flashing the player was apparently no good. Even someone who uploaded footage of the game was contacted in the comments by the publisher. The publisher said in the YouTube comments,
Hello, this is Gmode Corporation. The videos shown here are outside the guidelines we have established for you. We are sorry, but could you remove this video?
the guidelines. What? What are you talking about? Anyway, that brief flash of nudity was enough to get the game taken down permanently in e-stores in English-speaking countries. I guess they're keeping kids safe from knowing human anatomy. Well done, Nintendo. I don't know, we're moving on. Our next delisted game is Rhythm Heaven Megamix on the 3DS. I mostly mention it because I want to talk about Flow. This was a 3DS digital exclusive, but is now legally unavailable anywhere if you want to play it in English. but I wanted to at least mention it because I love these micro games. It's a lot like WarioWare, and like that, it's very memorable. But now, if you want to play these games, I just can't think of any possible way you can. There's no way to play these games. No possible way, never. The game is all about reaching that state of quote-unquote flow that I mentioned earlier. The same thing I'd find in a good game of Dance Dance Revolution, or maybe juggling. Both give me a state of flow. It's a case where I'm not thinking excessively about what I'm doing, I'm just doing. It's experiencing a game or an activity in full. In this person's case, perfectly drumming along to the beat of Megalomania. Strumming along on a guitar, being absorbed in a game. It's a state of being, and it's a nice state to be. And the game talks to you and teaches you about this state. And even that aside, the game's funny, it's bizarre, it's colorful, it speaks to the player, but like a human being. And not in that meta winking way. And it's always a shame to see these type of creative games taken off all stores. Because there aren't even physical copies of this game, it's basically lost media. I tell you, there's just no way we can preserve these games. We'll never find them again. They're gone forever. Yeah, okay, we'll move on. Next up, we have Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 on the Switch. Both Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 were temporarily removed from the eStore. And fun fact, this is actually one of my favorite game series of all time. And Metal Gear Solid 3 was the first game I got after saving up for my own PS2 as a teenager. I put $10 a week into that lay-by for like 7 months. Anyway, I was surprised to hear that these games were taken off Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation stores back in 2021. But you'd be surprised at the tiny reason these games are removed. Because the game dared show some historical footage and there were... Yep, licensing issues. Apparently, rather than cutting the footage, they had to remove these games from stores completely. The game's publisher, Konami, released a press statement to explain.
Thank you for playing the Metal Gear series. We are currently working on renewing licenses for historical footage used in game. Therefore, we have begun suspending the sale of Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, and all products that include these games from digital stores globally. You can't play it. Go away!
But obviously by 2024, they'd renewed the licenses and these games returned for the Master Collection. And yeah, I replayed them all in the Master Collection. And yeah, that speech from the Patron AI aged disturbingly well.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness.
This game was made 23 years ago too. How did Hideo predict the future so well? It's crazy. Oh, I had to mention this one. Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people. Yeah, that's the actual name of the game, as Homestar and his friends can't even state a title without making me smirk. I had to at least mention this one, as this is my favorite internet show of all time.
Hata! There's the cheat. Where the heck is your shirt? Your gloves are stupid. I hate you. Holmes, California.
But the Strong Bad game series was delisted without much fanfare or notice from anyone. Why was it delisted? Yep, you got it. I adore these games and will literally watch playthroughs of them in the background while I'm working. And luckily, my brother Raz first bought me copies of these games when they first came out on GOG. So I still have access, but for new people, it's lost media. But Reddit was the one place they did notice it was delisted. They asked the question,
Are there not enough attractive people anymore?
to which another replied,
They all died in a huge gasoline montage explosion.
One person proposed this to explain it.
There's still attractive people, but not enough to keep up with the increasing maintenance costs.
Okay, sorry, let's move on. And last but not least, we have Jump Force Deluxe Edition. Jump Force is like a collaboration fighting game of the most popular anime characters. It was a 3D arena fighting game meant to celebrate bringing all these popular anime characters together. All the characters from Shonen Jump, and they own a lot of popular characters. For example, you might have heard of Dragon Ball, or One Piece, Bleach, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and Naruto. Even if you're not an anime fan, you've probably heard of at least one of those. Unfortunately, not a lot of fans were happy with this game. It was met with some mixed reviews. The combat was often seen as repetitive and mediocre, and the story has writing quality on par with Kingdom Hearts. Yes, I realize that's a harsh criticism on Jump Force. But in 2022, Namco announced that Jump Force would be removed from all digital stores and the game's servers would be shut down. So why was it removed? Most likely, yep, changing or expiring character rights are probably the reason Jump Force Deluxe was taken down. and it was thoroughly scrubbed from all devices: Xbox, Switch, PlayStation, even PC. And of course, when a game's taken off digital stores, it becomes a scalper's dream. As of this video, copies on Amazon were selling for around $260. I recommend giving these Jump Force games a skip. Definitely don't buy them at that price. I do like to try and end these videos on a positive note, but I do think making these games digitally unavailable is a genuine problem. And Nintendo themselves don't seem too concerned over preservation of art. Nowadays, they seem more concerned over suing fan games, suing any healthy competition they have, and just monopolizing the industry. But so many games that took hundreds of hours of development are disappearing from reach and becoming lost media because of issues as petty as licensing. Or if a game server is too quiet, the whole thing has got to shut down. It's a shame there's so much legal red tape, because a game that's abandoned should just be free to whoever wants to try it or preserve it. It's not like anyone's making money off it. And even if they try and hide it, I can assure you, Nintendo, there's plenty of people out there who will try and preserve and save these games from disappearing. They don't care how much Nintendo bullies them. They'll be back, just as I will. Thanks for watching, and whether I see you next time or not, I'll be back.
Why?
And thanks to my patron bosses and members, including these patrons and members you see here. And an extra thanks to my bosses in the Patron Shoutout tier. Pardon me, my throat's a bit sore. These people include Anna Jones, Procrastinators, Katie and Dalton, John Bondi, Thomas Fernando, Angel Angeline, 3 Cat Day, Shaw, Skyzo, The Furry of Fury. I need a drink, clearly. Cookie Monster, Noel Schornhorst, Shockwave FPS Studios, Miss Arceus, Fluffpaws, Matthew Kirkland, The Goober, Asher Gachabasta, Jacob Snyder, The Undead Sparrow, Joseph Bowers, Jenny Smith, Alistair, Jordan McCann, Chris Schoff, Bubbles Dark, Ocean Survival, Chandler Amethyst, 2006 Honda Accord, Megan Bruns, Joseph Bowers, FCL, The Hug Wizard, Rayan Graves, Satin Yoshi, Eagle Talon, William Johnson, Dason, I Cosmic, and JJ. And since we finally ran out of Pud comics, I'd like to try something different and do some Garfield comics. I grew up with Garfield and loved the comics in the original 90s show. So if Jim Davis doesn't mind, let's enjoy some Garfield comics together. Next time I'll have Nin on to play Normal. So Garfield's about to grab the donut. Don't eat that poor defenseless donut. Don't listen to him. Chow down, pal. Do what's in your heart. Garfield ain't having this. And he eats both of them. So it's John and Garfield. Remember the time I said something funny? Do I? Ha 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 ha. No. This looks much newer. It's got a real shiny tint to it. Fun fact, Jim Davis is still producing this comic like every day. It is dedication I just cannot believe. This year I resolved to grow a mustache. I'm still kind of figuring out John's voice as I go. And I resolved to work out. And to let my hair grow long and wavy. And to put you on a diet. Garfield slimmed down a lot. Geez, I wish we could magically do that to Shadow. Heck with it. Wanna order a pizza? Make that 2. Oh, I love these. I hope people don't mind them. A little Garfield in my day makes it a little better.